Begin with the chanting of Om. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Shri Krishnam Sharanam Mama. So today we are continuing with the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2. And this is the second part of it. I've called this the path to enlightenment. And this is going to really lay out some of the significant pieces that are required to walk on the path of enlightenment. It's not an easy chapter. It's one that's got a lot of challenging thoughts in it. And I would love to hear your questions as we are done with this, because there will be quite a lot of things for you to ask. So please pay attention and let's see how it goes. So today I did not do a recording. I'm going to have to just take it from where it is. We are here, chapter 2b is what I'm calling it, the path of enlightenment. So Bhagavan Sri Krishna, after instructing Arjun about the qualities of the soul, continues explaining to him certain things. And the first verse that he really speaks of this path of enlightenment is, I think this is what he's really referring to here, is something extremely profound that all of us can use. I'll put it on the screen for you to look at. The non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So, it's a powerful statement. He's referring to the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress. Whenever we are in a moment of either happiness or distress, we tend to think it will last forever. That's the way the mind functions. And it tends to believe that almost catastrophic thinking that, it's going to get worse, it's going to get worse. And maybe, or even if you have everything going good for you, then it's like, let's say you won a lottery ticket. You can't imagine that you're going to tell that lottery ticket is going to be, you're going to blow it up and there's going to be nothing left, within a short time, maybe a couple of years or something. It's happened to a lot of people. So very often we take our successes and think they will last forever, or our failures and think they will last forever. But Krishna is pointing out here that both happiness and distress are impermanent. They will not last. Just as winter and summer seasons do not last forever, winter will pass, summer will pass, so also will the difficult times in our life pass. All of that will pass. And it's important to understand this, and to understand it very, very deeply, because nothing lasts forever in this world. Strange tragedy of this all is that we are beings who come from a world where things do last forever. We are spiritual beings. We have a nature to think of things as being forever. When we get married, we want to be in that relationship forever. When we live, we never want to die. Right? We think everything is forever. And there's nothing wrong in that. It's actually coming from a deep and primal source within us. The source being that of our soul. Our soul is indeed forever. And because we come from a place that is forever, and because we are a being who lives forever, we think of everything in forever terms. Now, that being picked up by the mind in this world suddenly becomes something that doesn't match. Because nothing in this world lasts forever. Nothing. Nothing at all. Not our youth, not our financial situation, not our problems, not our good times. Nothing. It's when you understand that all of this is being triggered by the mind or by sense perception, as Krishna is calling it here, then you begin to see that, it is temporary. Whatever it is, it's temporary and it will pass. How would you, try to take that home with you today and see how that would affect your life, how that would change things for you. This very, very simple idea that nothing lasts forever. Tell me in a moment if you're able to see my screen now. Do you see me? Give me a yes or no, or put it in the text. No? Not at all. Nothing. Okay. That didn't work. I'm trying to share with you the screen that is happening here. So let's take one more try and then I'll give up. Okay. Do you see me now? I think you do. Right? But no. Do you see me? Oh, that's what I was asking. And do you see this now? Excellent. This is what I was trying to get to. All right. So here's the text that we've just been reading. The non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Now, Krishna goes on talking of this is actually, he's going to be referring to the path of enlightenment, and he says, in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. What would you say is the most dangerous type of fear? Would it be death? Would it be some kind of situation where your survival is threatened? Maybe not enough food, no shelter, things like that, right? So here he's talking about how when you walk on this path, you become free from the most dangerous types of fear, whether that fear is of death, whether that fear is of survival, whether that fear is about how to live and how to make just exist in this world. You become fearless. And so that to me is one of the very first symptoms of spiritual awakening. The arising of a sense of fearlessness within you, knowing that you will be taken care of. So it comes from two things. It comes from shifting the identification from the ego to the soul. Really getting it that I'm a spiritual being and not just, I am a human being, but my true identity is spirit. My true identity is the soul. And although I exist in this world in a human body, with a human mind, still, at the end of the day, as Krishna was saying in the earlier parts that we read last week, the soul is imperishable. I am imperishable. I cannot be destroyed by anything, not by fire, not by water, not by atomic bombs, by anything. I cannot be destroyed. And so that's the first basis of fearlessness. And the second basis of fearlessness is to know that you have a connection with the divine, that you have surrendered your heart, mind, and soul to God. That gives you a certain sense of fearlessness as well. That you have the greatest power of all, the light of all universes by your side, in your heart, with you always. There's tremendous, tremendous power in that, right? So in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. That's another thing, is that in the material world, you can lose things. Economies can go up and down. Wealth can be made and unmade, right? Jobs can be gained and lost. Relationships can be gained and lost. But in this endeavor of spiritual growth, you will never lose. Whatever you gain, even if you do a little bit of spiritual work in this life, that work will go with you forever. The progress you make spiritually will last eternally. And you may say, how do you know this? How can you prove this? I can speak for myself, and I can speak for many of you here. I'll share my little story. From a very young age, perhaps, well, in the beginning it was just a curiosity, but not really serious. Like enjoyed going to the temple and things like that. But by the age of 13, it was like a passion. I needed to know, why am I here? People wanted to ask me, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I was like, I don't know. But I do want to know why I'm here and what this life is all about. I want to know why you people work so hard if you're going to die and leave it all behind. Now, my point to you is, why was I asking such, according to the people I was talking to, stupid questions, right? Why was I asking such stupid questions according to them? They couldn't get it. They thought I was something wrong with this guy. Maybe you asked such questions. Maybe you stood up to the religion of your birth. Maybe you began to seek further. And I pose to you the possibility that the spiritual growth you made in your previous lifetimes came with you, and you were seeking for something more. Whereas the people who you were with may not have made the same level of spiritual progress in their previous lives and may therefore have not been seeking. So consider that possibility, that what you gain spiritually, and Krishna is promising it here, will never be lost. There will never be a loss or diminution on this path. And even a little advancement on this path will protect you from the most dangerous type of fear. To me, this is all the assurance I need to know that, wow, okay, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be great. I don't have to be some highly evolved being. I just have to do the best I can and really endeavor with sincerity. And everything will be taken care of, right? That's what matters eventually. Please be alert to any questions that might come up in your mind. I will take them up at the later part. I'm trying to cover a bunch of stuff for now, so stay with me. So, however, he does give a caveat here, and that is this. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. Means you have to be single-minded. If this is your aim, spiritual growth, if your aim is truly to evolve spiritually, to truly grow, then don't just give lip service to it. Make it your purpose in life. That it doesn't mean you stop doing what you're doing, your work, your job, your family. By all means, be there. Take care of them. Be committed. Be devoted. But know that through it all, through all of this journey, your ultimate destination is spiritual evolution, your spiritual growth, your liberation from the cycle of birth and death. So he says, those who are on this path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. The intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. See, if spirituality is just one of the things you do, it's like a hobby, then you will have many things that take up your intelligence, that take up your mind. But to develop true commitment to something requires a certain devotion, whether that is your career, whether that is a relationship, or whether that is your spiritual path. Putting your spiritual path above everything else is important because that will go with you when you leave this world. Your job will not go, your house will not go with you, your family will not go with you, your body will not go with you. You and all the spiritual progress that you made in this life, that will go with you at the end of this life, and it will then become the basis of your next life. And then you will add to that, and in the next life you will add to that, until you reach that point of enlightenment, and therefore liberation from this world. In the minds of those who are attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination to advance spiritually and engage in devotion to the Supreme Lord does not take place. So once again, we have a reason why some people don't take to it. And if you find yourself there, it's okay to be honest with yourself. I am very attached to enjoying myself, and I am very attached to material opulence. And I guess I'll do the best I can for now, but I'm not in that place to be resolute in my determination. Okay, it's good to be honest. It's good to know where you're at. It's good to admit your own state of being. And who knows, maybe at some point that changes. Maybe you realize at some point that all the material opulence and all the enjoyment of the world ultimately is like eating sugar candy. It tastes nice, right? It feels wonderful. But in the end, you're always left hungry and wanting more. It's not nutritious. It has not satisfied the real thirst within you. The real longing within you has not been quenched. And whereas on the spiritual path, you find quite the opposite happening. You find that that thirst is quenched. You are feeling satisfied. You are nurtured from within. You are content in a way that you probably don't find anyone else being. And he goes on to even talk here about the Vedas. The Vedas are the ancient texts, of which the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam are some sort of the final texts. So he says the Vedas mainly deal with the subject of the three modes of material nature. It means how to live in this world. Rise above these modes. Rise above the influence of this world. Three modes of material nature, which we had been explained to us as we read them earlier in the 18th chapter and earlier as well, were about the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. We won't go into it now, but we'll discuss it another time. But rise above the modes of nature. Rise above your mental state. Rise above your moods. Rise above your desires. And become transcendental to all of them. Be free from all duality. Duality is the things you like and the things you dislike. The things you agree with, the things you disagree with. Good, bad, right, wrong. Be free from all duality. From all anxiety for gain and safety. And be established in the self. Oh, you may say, this is so difficult. How can I do this? It's so impossible. And you would be absolutely correct, my friend. You would be absolutely right. Because if you're hearing these words through your mind cannot do this. It cannot become free from duality because it is a thing of duality. It sees everything as duality. And it will not be free of anxiety because it is constantly worrying about the future and what's going to happen and then what. And is always worried about gain and safety. So for the mind, it is not possible. Therefore, it is imperative to engage in meditation. And through meditation, to begin to shift the identity. Right now, the identity you live by is I am this body, I am this mind, I am these thoughts, this is my story. That is the egoic identity. The idea is to change that identity and take on the identity of the soul. I am this, right? To become established in the self, as he says here. So to take on that identity, which is your true and real nature, your true identity. So claim that place. This is who I am. I am an imperishable being. I am a part of God. I am spirit, and I am here to experience all these wonderful things. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have material things. It simply means you must not be attached to them, because that is a false attachment. It is a sense of owning something which in fact you will never own. So it is the soul that can be free of duality and anxiety for gain and safety, not the mind. Right? That's a really important distinction to make. By becoming established in the self, as he says here, by becoming established in the self, you will then be able to become free from duality and all anxieties for gain and safety. So that's the hidden secret or intent here, is that we become identified with our true self. Then Krishna continues, when your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, what is the forest of delusion? This world, right? You shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. This is when your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion. That means you've come to that place of spiritual identification. You've come to that place where you not only identify with, but you feel and you experience and you see the world through spiritual eyes. What will happen is this: the programming of your mind and all the stuff you learned from the time of your childhood till now will become nullified. By that, I don't mean it won't be there. It will just no longer hold any control over you. You will no longer be driven by it. You will not be driven by the conditioning of your mind. You will be able to step out of it, change it, alter it, play with it, do with it as you wish. It will not be the thing that governs your life. It's a really important thing to understand. We can have that freedom. It's not just about dying and going to some heaven. It's not about dying and going to some light or getting some liberation at death. It is about being liberated here and now in this life, in this world. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, when it remains fixed in trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. So fixed in the trance of self-realization. So you're starting to get a glimpse now. Self-realization is not just an intellectual understanding of the self, but rather it is a state of being. It is you're steadily established in that shift in consciousness, the shift from the ego to the self. That shift is where you have divine consciousness. And that divine consciousness keeps you in this beautiful state of trance called self-realization. Realization is not the same as knowledge. It's not about self-knowledge, self-awareness. That's the beginning. But the end is realization. To realize it means to live it, to embody it, to be completely situated in that state of consciousness. That is when it becomes self-realization. So Arjun has a question for Krishna. And as I said, I hope you will yourself have many. Arjun says, "Oh Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk?" So I find this question really important because there are so many people who go around parading as gurus, so many people who go around spouting philosophies and ideologies, but there is no standard, there is no gold standard unless you refer to something like the Bhagavad Gita. You'll find the same ideas also in the Bible. You will find the same ideas in every scripture of the world. It's not that they are different, but the Bhagavad Gita presents it scientifically. It does not go about it as a faith-based system. It goes about it as a scientific system, meaning that there are characteristics to look for, there are signs to look for, and symptoms by which you will recognize a thing, whether that thing is the soul, whether that thing is spiritual awakening or enlightenment. Now, I don't know if you've been there, but I definitely walked on a path where I followed someone who was supposed to be a guru, very charismatic, but turned out to not be quite there. And I was young. I was in my early 20s, in fact, early 20s, and did not know what are the symptoms. And so to me, this part is very important, to be able to have you and everyone understand what are the symptoms of a highly evolved being. So Krishna begins by speaking. When a person gives up all varieties of sense desire, which arise from mental concoction, and finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Okay, read that carefully. When a person gives up all varieties of sense desire that arise from mental concoction and find satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So, what does this mean? Giving up all varieties of sense desire. We all have desire. And there's going to be a lot of talk in the next few verses about giving up desire and what desire leads to. So it's not that you can actually give up desire entirely. You will always have desire. But it is the attachment to desire. It is the thinking that desire, the living for the fulfillment of your desires. It is making the desire, the achievement of your desires, the goal of your life. That is the culprit. That is where we get stuck, right? We make our desires paramount. Whereas, yes, we have desires to survive and to exist and even to enjoy the world. It's not that we should not enjoy the world, but there'll be some clear distinctions that come about that you'll see as Krishna continues to describe this. So when a person is able to give up all varieties of sense desires that arise from mental concoction, this is an interesting phrase. Where do our desires come from? Right? Where do our desires come from? They come from stuff that our mind makes up, mental concoction. It says, you know what, if I had that new car, man, that Tesla, that incredible, that Mercedes, or that Ferrari, or if I had this beautiful house, or if I had this this diamond necklace, wow, that would be fantastic. Now, where did that come from? The mind concocted a desire. And now we go about chasing it, right? And if we can fulfill it, we are happy. And if we cannot fulfill it, we are unhappy. And therein begins the rat race of our life, the treadmill that we get stuck in. The idea of what Krishna is telling you is about how to become free from that treadmill. So when one is able to give up all varieties of sense desire that arise from mental concoction and do what instead? Find satisfaction in the self alone. When one is able to, so one has to find pleasure somewhere. One has to find satisfaction somewhere, right? You can't not have pleasure. You can't not feel good. You can't not enjoy yourself. You want to. You are driven to, but without knowing why and where you will get that fulfillment. The fulfillment of your desire will come, for a spiritually realized person, will come from the self. It will come from within, not from without. So it is that understanding that is the difference between spiritual and material existence. It is not, spiritual doesn't mean you renounce or give up material existence. It can mean that, but it doesn't have to mean that. You can live in a palace. You can have all the things of the world. But if your satisfaction is coming from within, then you are a self-realized soul right there. It doesn't matter what you've got and how much you've got. It doesn't make a difference. You're not chasing the stuff of the world. You are content within yourself. And you have whatever you have. It doesn't matter. It doesn't define who you are. Your possessions, your wealth, your house, your car, your job do not define who you are. Yourself defines who you are. That is your identity. One who is not disturbed in spite of the threefold miseries. Now, these threefold miseries are different than the three modes of material nature. Threefold miseries are miseries that are caused by the body, so by one's own body and mind, Adi Baudik, Adi Atmic, that is caused by other living, miseries caused by other living entities, right? Those are miseries from other people who might harass you or trouble you or criticize you or judge you. Can also be from bugs and, insects and other creatures, right? So there's miseries caused by your own body of, let's say, fever, sickness, whatever else. You're having a stomach ache or you got whatever other problems. Miseries caused by other living entities and miseries caused by nature. So heat, cold, extreme situations, storms, rain, tornadoes, all of that would fit into miseries caused by nature. So miseries caused by the body, miseries caused by other beings, and miseries caused by nature. One who is not disturbed in spite of the threefold miseries, who is not elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. So think about it. If you eliminate these things, right, you're no longer affected by stuff your body is going through. You're no longer affected by the stuff people do or say, or any creature does. And you're no longer affected by the weather or circumstances or whatever's going on outside in nature. You're no longer elated when there is happiness or upset when there is sorrow, when things go your way or don't go your way. When you are free from attachment, fear, and anger, what remains? Take out all of that. That's the whole gamut of our human existence, right? What remains? Peace. Harmony. That's what he calls a sage of steady mind. Your mind is now steady. Your mind is not wavering. Your mind is not going here and there. It's not being pulled by this desire and this plan and that plan. It is steady. Steady what? In the self. So that is the goal. I'm not saying I am there. I'm not saying you're there. This is our goal. And it's important to identify a goal. Because if we don't identify a goal, then we're never going to get anywhere. We never know where to go. And that's the problem with modern day spirituality and spiritual practitioners, is they have no idea of what the goal of spirituality is and what it looks like. And that is why this is so relevant. Krishna continues, one who is without attachment, who does not rejoice when he obtains auspiciousness, that is something that is desirable, something that is auspicious, nor lament when he obtains something inauspicious, something undesirable, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell is said to be truly situated in knowledge. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, one is fixed in consciousness. Okay, pay attention to these words. Ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste. It is not possible to give up the pleasures of the world. Let's be very clear. We came here to enjoy them, and we are enjoying them. And I hope that that is not something we're trying to take away from you. What we are trying to get to is a higher taste. So let's think of it like this. Children play with dolls, right? And then when they grow up, they leave the dolls behind, and now they have a real house, a real partner, a real car, We want to go from the playthings of the world to the real things of spirit. We want to find the pleasures we seek within ourselves. We want to become content within ourselves. That needs to be the pursuit. And when one has become content within oneself, then the things of the world are simply there to be used, to live in. A house to live in, a car to get around from here to there. Perfect. There's no problem with it. There is no reliance on it. There is no attachment to it. Today you might be living in a palace. Tonight you might be living in a tent or on the street. Doesn't make any difference. Today you might have millions. Tomorrow you might have nothing. Doesn't make any difference. You'll enjoy them both. In a wonderful ancient song, they sang, Vava Moja Fakira Di. He talks about the fakir and how his enjoyment is there, whether he has beautiful banquet to eat or whether he's having to eat leftovers that have been thrown away by somebody in the trash, or whether that person gets to live in a palace or gets to sleep out on the street. The quality of that highly evolved being is happy under all circumstances. Under all circumstances. And that is the place that can be achieved and arrived at by all of us. Why? How? Once again, just to repeat the point, through here, not through here. Not through the body, not through the mind, but through spirit. It is your soul that is capable of all of these wonderful tasks. And it is the identity as it changes from the false identity, the false ego, to the real identity, the soul. That's when the entire transformation happens. And that's what we want to strive for. I'll go through the next part a little quickly. The senses are so strong and impetuous that they forcibly carry away the mind, even if a person of determined discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. One who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a person of steady intelligence. So the other thing to know is we've been talking about the self, but the other part is what Krishna is talking about now. By fixing your consciousness on him. See, you have divine help. You're not alone in this world. You have divine help. People say, well, what is the need of having a God, right? I mean, okay, you say the universe was created. Maybe it was created by a consciousness. That consciousness was intelligent. We can go up to that point. But why do you need to have a person? Because we are persons and we relate to persons. It's a very simple answer. And so that divine consciousness, which is everything in the universe, can, if it so chooses, to personify itself. Can it not? To say that it cannot is to limit it. To say that there is no purpose served, there is a purpose served. And that purpose is connection, relationship. The ability to be able to reach out to something or someone and say, hey, I need some help. Krishna, help me. Or if you're a follower of Jesus, then Jesus, help me. Or if you're of Buddha or Muhammad, you have someone you can call on. You have a relationship with. And if that being that you call on is truly the all-powerful Almighty, you will receive help. Be assured of that. You will not be let down. So Krishna is saying here, one who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a person of steady intelligence. See, for that person, again, it becomes easy to get to that point. So now he goes into an explanation about how one gets sucked into the material pool. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. You know how it is, you watch an ad on TV, you contemplate the object, or you see what someone is wearing, or a car they're driving, or the kind of house they live in. You say, whoa, I would like that, right? So while contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. From such attachment, desire develops, and from desire, anger is manifest. Now you'll say, what? What do you mean anger is manifest? When the desire is not fulfilled, then anger manifests. Or if the desire is fulfilled, and then something goes wrong, you get the person of your dreams, the love of your life, and then things go astray. That person cheats on you or leaves you or whatever. Now suddenly, anger arises because your desire now has been thwarted. You get you gain wealth and then you lose it. Anger arises because your desire is now unfulfilled. You got what you wanted and you lost it. Or you never got it. Either way, right? So he says, from desire, anger is manifest. From anger, what happens when we get angry? Delusion arises. Means we get deluded. We say and do crazy things. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. What is the memory that bewilders us? We forget who we are. We forget what is right. We forget what is good. And we do crazy, stupid things when we are angry. Delusion arises. From that comes bewilderment of memory. When the memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. You know how many times they talk of crimes of passion, where someone, let's say they found out their partner is sleeping with someone else. They went out and killed that person. Crime of passion. Intelligence is lost. That person doesn't think in that moment that, hey, I'm going to kill someone, right? I'm killing my partner or the person, their paramour, the one they're cheating with. And the consequence is going to be, I'm going to be in jail for the rest of my life. Of what value is this now? There's no thinking behind it. There is no intelligence. Intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, Krishna says, one falls down again into the material pool. That means you become sucked into this world. You get sucked into this world. You get sucked into all kinds of consequences that devastate you. For one who is situated in the divine consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such a happy state, one's intelligence soon becomes steady. So intelligence being steady means that you are now focused. Your focus is clear. Your focus in life is clear. One who is not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? Read this very carefully. One who is not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? I think it's self-explanatory, so I'm going to go further. As a boat on the water is swept away by a strong wind, even one of the senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a person's intelligence. Therefore, one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly a steady intelligence. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. I love this verse. What is night? It's like the spiritual world and the material world are opposites. And what is night for all beings, right? So what most beings would not want to do, like, pulling away their senses from the sense objects, moving away from desire and becoming attached to the self or God. That would be night. Most people would not want to do that, right? So what is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings, what they like to do, the things that most people like to do, is night for the introspective sage. Not interested. Thank you so much. So it really comes to being a polarity in that sense, that the things that appeal to the materialistic person do not appeal to the one who is highly evolved. And the things that appeal to the highly evolved being may not appeal to someone who is materially inclined. One who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled, but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not one who strives to satisfy such desires. So this, I think, sums it all up, really, this one verse. So read it carefully. One who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled, but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the one who strives to satisfy such desires. You say, where is that ocean? That ocean is here within you. That ocean is right here. And it is, when you let the desires come through you, they come. It's okay. Thoughts come to you. Emotions come to you. Desires come to you. Events occur around you. And you become the observer. You observe them, but you become like the ocean, undisturbed by any of it. No matter what someone says or does, no matter what happens, no matter what desires are there, no matter what ways in which you're being pulled. In all cases, you are steady in the self. This is our goal. And let us aim for this, for all of us. One who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, such a person can attain real peace. That is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which one is no longer bewildered. Being so situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. With that, we end chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. I'd love to throw it open for questions. Anyone would like to ask something? I hope you've been noting things down. And please let me know if you have any questions. Any questions? There was a lot here. And there was a lot to think about. I know I've probably given you too much. I know. I know. Okay. Mm-hmm. Correct. Mhm. That is definitely the biggest struggle of all. It's okay to ask. Don't worry about that. Right. Hmm. Yes. 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 Surrounded by wealth. Yes, absolutely. And so is Arjun, the person he's speaking to. He's a prince, right? Though he was taken, his kingdom was taken away, but okay. Right. Right. Trying to, that seems to be a different question. Hmm. I see. Okay. So let me try to clarify this whole thing. The basis of when Krishna is talking about becoming detached from the things of the world, about not following our desires, about not becoming caught up in the pursuit of pleasure, what he's saying is this: do not take it, it's not that you're going to ever stop having desire. It is not, it is not, see, I made it very clear earlier. Whether you're a king or a pauper, the person who is self realized is able to find pleasure in all circumstances. It is not dependent upon having or not having. Our world thinks that only until you have things, until you have material things, until you have the pleasures of the world, you cannot be happy. But what Krishna is pointing out here is that a self realized person, the one who has truly experienced the soul and experienced that connection with God, that person is happy no matter what. They are happy regardless of any situation. So the material situation is actually quite irrelevant. Krishna was a king. Arjun was also in. If you look at Ram, you look at Dasharath, King Dasharath, you look at many of the great people talked about, the great spiritually evolved beings talked about, were either great rishis who lived in the forest and, completely dedicated to their spirituality, didn't have anything to do with the world. And many of them were wealthy. They were kings. They had everything. You have both extremes. The examples are at both ends. And in either case, it is irrelevant. Irrelevant because you are in that condition of life not because you are pursuing wealth. You are not pursuing life, liberty, and happiness. You're not pursuing wealth. You're not pursuing all these things. Your pursuit is for the self and through the self, God. This is your first experience of God. By when you meditate, you begin to have an experience. This path is very experiential. So as you begin to experience, your faith grows. And as your faith grows, connection grows. That matters. The attachment is always going to be there. Desire is always going to be there. What he's talking about is taking that desire and that attachment and connecting it to what he calls a higher taste, something of a higher frequency, right? When you become attached to that spirit, to God, to your soul, when you become attached to that vibration, then the attachment to the things of this world fade away. Again, attachment fades away. The things may or may not fade away. You don't have to give up. At no place is he saying you got to just walk away and renounce everything. No, not at all. It is about losing the attachment to the world and becoming attached to spirit. That's at the heart of the whole thing. So I've got a couple more questions coming in. Shira writes over here, and I'll bring it on in front of you. I thought I should be able to share it here, but not. Okay. Shira writes, desire is more akin to thought, the emotion, more akin to thought than emotion. Or would you disagree? So desire, you're right, Shira. Desire does come originally from thought. There is a thought. Like Krishna says, it's a mental concoction. The desires are mental concoctions. They're made up by our mind. But they then become emotions, because as we desire something, if we get it, then we feel very good. And if we lose it, we become very frustrated or angry. So now it does translate into emotion. In fact, most sellers of products try to prey on your emotions to generate desire. So it's hard for me to say that which comes first. Does emotion come first or thought come first in creating desire? I think if I look at advertisers, they seem to have discovered the secret to generating desire in people, and that is through emotion. They want you to buy a certain kind of car or a certain kind of product, and they do that by creating a certain emotional response within you, because they know that will work more powerfully than thought will. But however it happens, thought and emotion are deeply connected with each other, and becomes a chicken and egg story, really. But they are deep, linked up. So thank you for that question, Shira. We have another lovely question here, and this is from Lena. I can't hear the, okay. Desires are normal, but if we can learn to be grateful, we start desiring more noble things like peace and love. We start desiring God. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Right? So when desires are normal, absolutely. I've been saying that as well. If we can learn to be grateful, we start desiring more noble things, such as, so you're talking about the importance of gratitude, certainly. The point is, a lot of folks talk about gratitude. I'd love to ask them, who are you being grateful to? Right? You're grateful to what? What is it that you're actually grateful to? It's important to know that the source of everything, God, is a being. And we can have gratitude towards that being. We can say, hey, thank you. Thank you, Krishna, or thank you, Jesus, if that's, you follow. Perfectly all right. Thank you. Now you have someone you're addressing with your gratitude. And I think it has a lot more meaning and has a lot more significance when we do it that way. Anyone else? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You are. We own our, we think this is my desire. This is what I want. This is my possession. This is what we identify with it. We identify with our desire. We then commit ourselves to our desire. We then pursue our desire. We become so attached to our desire. Not only our desire, but then when we have fulfilled that desire, then our possessions. We become attached to those possessions. The important thing is to have and not be attached to what you have. To know that whatever you have belongs to God, came from God, belongs to God. Right now it is in your care. So if you have a house, you have a estate, you have a palace, it all belongs to God and should be used in the service of God. It is yours for a little while, you're the caretaker for a short while, and then you will leave this world and leave it all behind. So recognize the source of all creation, the materials of which your house was built, your car was built, this body was built, were all from nature, and nature is from God. We didn't create nature. We didn't create the ingredients of this body or the ingredients from which our houses or cars or any of the things we possess were made. Those ingredients were taken by someone from the earth, put it all together and sold it to us. But the original proprietor is still God. And to God it shall return. There is no way to bypass that process for any of us, right? So recognizing that sublime truth that everything we have, everything we are, is by the grace of God. And the moment we recognize that, there's peace. There's no attachment, there's no worry, there's no fear. If God has given me this much and taken care of me, there will always be plenty. There will always be more. I will always be taken care of. That is the spirit to live in. Be attached to that which is eternal and not that which is temporary. That is essentially the point. Our attachment to the temporary causes us to suffer. Our attachment to the eternal causes us to be happy. Right? And this is a lived fact. I've experienced this in so many ways, that attachment, when the attachment changes, then it doesn't really matter whether you have something or you don't, whether you're, because there's always someone who has something that you don't have and you'll want it. And it's natural. Yet don't be fooled by that. Don't be fooled by your desires, and your possessions and all the things that you have, thinking that they are worthy of devoting your life to. They're not. Have them, enjoy them, and let them go. They're like passing little toys. That's it. Nothing more. Let's see if there's anyone else who's got a question. Craig, Gabriel, Jessica, anyone else? Swati, love to hear from you guys if there's anything on your mind. Where are you on your spiritual path? Reflect on that. What would it take to get to this place where you're free from attachment, from duality, from your mind? Essentially, it's becoming free from your mind. This is the freedom from this. This is the place of attachment. This is the place of desire. This is the place of duality. This mind is the place of all our dramas in this life. You want freedom? Become free of this. How do you become free of this? Practice training it through dhyan. Dhyan means meditation. Meditation means learning to focus your mind so it no longer is in charge of you. You are in charge of it. It's a daily practice, moment to moment. And at the same time, start becoming aware that which lies within you, that which you experience in the quiet, when your mind is quiet, that peace, that calm, that stillness, that is the real you. And make that the center of your existence. You will have discovered happiness and bliss right here on earth. You will have created for yourself heaven on earth. It is not that heaven will happen for everybody on earth. It is that you will have experienced heaven on earth. You will have created your own heaven in your own mind. Here is hell in the mind, and here is heaven. So you decide, where do you wish to live? If you want to live in heaven, this is the roadmap. If you want to live in hell, the choices have been clearly brought up for us here to consider. So it's not about, I don't know about the heaven and hell out there, but I do know about the one in here. The one out there, I think there's something to it. Consider that, but I'll deal with that when I get there. For now, I know that I must follow this path diligently, single-mindedly, making this the highest priority of my life. I know that by doing that, I will make significant progress in this life. And that is what I wish for all of you. I'll take one last question if you have one, and then we'll wind up. Anyone? Last moment, give it one last shot. All right then. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful night, and I will see you next week. Take care. You're welcome. We're winding up now, so I'll take up your question.